After Violet Cartwright blew Jeff a kiss, enjoying his stunned face as the elevator doors closed in front of it, she hurried toward the hotly anticipated park company press conference. The meeting room was already filled with rows of reporters and photographers. They had been quietly discussing the day's events amongst themselves, but when Violet entered the room, each one of them stopped talking instantly. They all knew that Violet was Olivia's executive assistant. Olivia had previously brought her to many activities and events, so they were used to seeing this imposing, authoritative woman in a dark suit over Olivia's shoulder. She was thought of as a severe, frightening beauty, like someone who could kill you and then charm her way out of trouble. They did not know how true that was. Violet did not care that all eyes were on her. She paid the assembled press no attention and walked straight to an open computer at the front of the room. The room remained completely silent as she tapped on the keyboard, checked a few things, and assessed its connection to the projection equipment. After confirming there was no problem, she took a few steps back, standing alert against the back wall. After Violet finished, Olivia appeared in the meeting room with a few executives and members of the board trailing behind her. Since it had been so long since Olivia had given an interview or made a public appearance, everyone was stunned at her commanding presence and bright, intelligent eyes. As she often did, she had a sly smirk on her face. They remembered that they had always known her as a model of what everyone hoped from a young person from an important family. Even in the competitive world of New York City socialites, she was at the top. Olivia moved confidently at a measured pace and stood behind a podium. She straightened papers at the podium, saying nothing. She was known for being decisive and moving swiftly in normal times, which was at odds with the patience on display. The whole room seemed to hold its breath. One reporter stood up suddenly. Olivia's eye shot to them. "Chairman Johnson, what do you think of Mark DeLillo's words?" "Chairman Johnson, Chairman Johnson." Since that first person put a crack in the dam of silence, the flood of reporters' anticipation and questions poured forth. "Chairman Johnson, why hasn't the park company announced any of their plans for the upcoming quarter?" "Chairman Johnson." Olivia had a placid smile fixed on her face. She quietly listened to everyone asking at once. Since she gave no responses, their urgent questions gradually died down. Once they were silent again, she spoke. "Just now, everyone asked a lot of questions. It was a bit messy. I actually don't think I could even hear most of them." Olivia shrugged her shoulders apologetically. "I will begin with a few of the questions that I did hear." She gestured to the first reporter who stood. "You asked me about what I think of Mr. DeLillo's comments." "Yes," the reporter nodded eagerly, their hand holding up a tape recorder. Violet noticed that the tape recorder trembled. Olivia tilted her head, frowning. "So, what comments were those? I'm not sure if I heard about that." The reporters' faces all fell. They were confused and many frowned in disbelief. If she didn't know what Mark had said about her, why did she even invite them in and hold this press conference in the first place? This rang false. Violet stepped up to Olivia's side and whispered something into her ear. Olivia raised her eyebrows. "Is that so?" She then looked thoughtful. "Since the comments you're referring to were posted in a video online, let's find it and play it." "Yes, miss," Violet answered. She moved to the computer to play the video of Mark's interview on the projector. Olivia quietly watched the video, smirking without any other response as the room waited for her. They had all obviously seen it already and felt impatient. Olivia said. "What he said is quite interesting. When you're a public figure, and your comments can really have an effect throughout the business, I think it's odd to say such irresponsible words. Did Mark DeLillo do it on purpose, or was it just a mistake?" Violet narrowed her eyes and thought at the projection. The first comment seemed to be a mistake, but later... She paused for a moment. "I don't know." "And you know..." Olivia tapped her chin like she was figuring something out. She let a pause stretch on for an uncomfortably long time. looking at the reporters waiting for her to answer. Mr. DeLillo also said in his video that it was his own opinion. Since it was his own opinion, it seems like he announced that it was just an uninformed guess. Then what is the truth of all of this? Another reporter asked. The truth? Olivia asked. What truth are you talking about? The reporter sized Olivia up, still trying to figure out what kind of game she was playing. The Rose Company has been drumming up a lot of business, and Confluence Technology released a very successful video showing off their game. But the park company has not done anything at all. What does Chairman Johnson think about this? Olivia leaned forward slightly. Who told you we didn't do anything? The reporter searched for an answer but did not respond. Olivia raised an eyebrow. You are an adult. We're all on the record in here. You have to be responsible for what you said. But up until now, the reporter replied, the park company hasn't released any information about this. Olivia held out a hand. But as you can maybe imagine, just because no information was released doesn't mean there isn't any. Is that a possibility that any of us can grasp? It was just that the timing wasn't right to release it. When will the timing be right to release it? Someone else asked. Olivia smiled. Oh, I don't know. How about today? The reporters looked at each other, trying to make sense of all of this. They weren't sure if she was being genuine or not. At that moment, the door of the meeting room opened and Jeff Dreyer walked in, buttoning his jacket. Sorry, I'm late, he said to Olivia with a nod. It's fine, Olivia answered him. You're right on time. Jeff stood by Olivia's side. When he passed Violet Cartwright, they exchanged an odd look. He averted his gaze. When Jeff settled, Olivia continued. Actually, the park company's activities have been planned for a long time, and also involved a marketing and promotion strategy. A reporter raised their tape recorder. I would like to ask, is the upcoming strategy in the park company going to be to offer special deals? Olivia furrowed her brow, looking puzzled. Why would you think we would center our whole strategy around offering deals? The reporter spoke carefully. Because the deals offered by the Rose Company have caused quite a stir in New York City. It makes business sense and has seen an upturn for them with customers and their stock value. Does the park company not see such a successful strategy as something they should use for a reference? The reporter did not say anything openly hostile, but every word sounded like it had a tiny knife inside it. The whole room looked from the reporter back to Olivia. She laughed. Wow, how interesting is that? What are you laughing at? The same reporter responded, beginning to sound annoyed. It's nothing, she replied with a wave of her hand. She looked up at the ceiling and thought about her words before speaking deliberately. The Rose Company is a new business in New York City. They only operate one hotel. They had to build themselves a stable foothold of brand new customers in a crowded business, and they had to do it fast. The park company has a lot of recognition among the people of New York. We have a relationship already. They trust us. The facts about the two of our companies are wildly different. Why would our marketing model be the same? A reporter next to a video camera spoke up. Chairman Johnson, please let me give you a friendly reminder that we have a live broadcast going on here. I just want to make sure you stand by everything you say. Olivia nodded. Thank you so much for the reminder. I do stand by everything I've said. It was all the truth. I can't say that everyone on recent live broadcasts has taken the same care. On the other side of town, in the luxury penthouse suite at the top of the Rose Company's hotel, Mark sat in front of his computer watching the broadcast of Olivia's press conference. He smirked at the video. Olivia, 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 he said to his screen. Why haven't I killed you yet? The beautiful reporter, with an allegiance to Mark DeLillo, wanted desperately to knock Olivia off her game. Miss Chairman, was what you said just about the new Rose Company meant to insult every new company that isn't an aging institution like yours? She asked with a sickly sweet voice. Olivia looked bored. That's not what I said. That's what you said. And I think you know the difference. The reporter did not drop her line of questioning. What is the difference? Olivia stared her down. The difference is this is a press conference about what I say. And as far as I understand it, it's your job to report it. The difference is also that I have the right to ask you to leave at any time, while the opposite is not true. The reporter's tone suddenly sharpened. Did I touch a nerve, Miss Chairman? Did that cause you to show us more of who you really are? Do you think you disrespect me because you have a bias against female reporters? Olivia was at a loss. She gestured to the many other women in attendance. That's obviously not. She sighed. You know what? Forget it. Out of this many of you, it makes sense that there's one of you who doesn't have a brain. The room chuckled, but the reporter did not give up. What right do you have to belittle us? Did you take over this company because you wanted to bully people? Olivia rubbed her temple. You are right. I am sorry for saying that you do not have a brain. Let me try to put this in terms you can understand. What I said before was not intended to insult every new company, but it was a comprehensive analysis of strengths and resources. The reason why the Rose Company would give a huge discount was because they only had one property. Mark DeLillo also announced that this decision will not make any money and may even result in a loss. The room's sympathies were with Olivia, but the reporter still frowned angrily up at her. Olivia continued, Let me ask you, if we made the same move as a company with many more properties, multiple more properties in fact, why would I want to create that loss? The reporter shouted back, What does that matter? This is to benefit the people of New York City. Why do you care so much about profits? Why is it bad to be as altruistic and generous as Mr. DeLillo? Olivia nodded. I do believe in taking care of the people of New York City. The ones the park company mainly has a responsibility toward are the many park company employees. She spoke slowly as if to a child. Do you know the difference between the hospitality industry and a charity organization? The reporter was speechless, though she kept trying to begin a sentence. This, Olivia continued. Everyone should remember what things looked like before the park company changed its name. The Johnson Company was facing bankruptcy. The entire stock market was in danger. All sources of capital for the Johnson family were obliterated. More than 80% of their partnerships and relationships had been officially terminated. Olivia swept her eyes out over the room. If I did not take over the Johnson Company when I did, it would have closed down. All of our employees would be unemployed. Investors would be bankrupt. That is why I take every move for this company seriously. The reporter's poker face had been strong, but Olivia could see that she had gone pale. After being rebuked so many times, she did not have another angle to try. Olivia sighed and rubbed her forehead. I did not expect having to spell it out for one person to be so tiring. In the future, miss, can you maybe send one of your colleagues who can understand business? End sentences, or at least basic words? The room laughed again. The reporter haughtily rolled her eyes, looking away. Olivia seemed to have thought of something. Wait, that's why you look so familiar, isn't it? She narrowed her eyes at the reporter. She pointed to the video on the projector and paused it. Aren't you the one who just interviewed Mark DeLillo? Raised eyebrows and shocked faces turned to the reporter. It was true. Olivia nodded. I think I remember that you compared the offices of the Rose Company to the Park Company in the video of you interviewing Mr. DeLillo. Jeff frowned, speaking up from behind Olivia. Who at the Park Company did you ever interview? She stammered as all eyes held her expectantly. You see, I did interview someone on the executive team for the Park Company. She was stalling, trying to think about how to get out of this. She had never interviewed anyone from the Park Company before. She had only said that in her interview with Mark because he had paid her to say it. Olivia pretended to be confused. There is a clear rule in the Park Company that no one is allowed to set foot in the office without approval or invitation. On top of this, Any executive at Park is strictly forbidden to be interviewed by reporters one-on-one. She leaned forward toward the reporter. It is impossible that you have ever interviewed someone from the Park Company. Jeff crossed his arms. So why did you say that? Did someone ask you to? And what about today? Did someone ask you to cause trouble at this press conference? The reporter had never seen such a catastrophe played out live before, let alone experience being the person at the center of it. She had just graduated from college not long ago. She had hoped that partnering with Mark DeLillo would be a quick, easy way to make a name for herself and get her start. Plus, it didn't hurt that she found him very attractive. And, not insignificantly, she did relish the thought of taking someone like Olivia down a peg. She suddenly seemed aware that everyone was looking at her, and the live broadcast camera was pointing in her direction. The reporter nervously touched her hair, still trying to figure out how to respond. Miss Chairman, I think you don't seem to realize how bad this actually is for you, and not for me. In fact, forget it. Olivia interrupted. You can leave. In the future, the Park Company does not welcome you to our press conferences or any other events for the media. When the reporter heard Olivia say that, her heart skipped a beat. If Olivia really meant what she said, that she would be banned from covering anything regarding the Park Company, it would mean that her career would be sentenced to death. If she went back to her network with this news, she would definitely be fired. Don't, the reporter cried. I'll tell you, I swear. The person who paid me to come make trouble today is... Simultaneously, Mark stood up in front of the laptop screen where he watched the broadcast. Damn it, no, you idiot, you wouldn't dare. If she dared to betray him, he swore he would make her disappear from this world. Olivia raised a hand to the reporter. No need for you to say any more, I could already guess who it is. She looked coldly at her. As a reporter, you should be ashamed of your actions. You are not qualified to work in this industry. Jeff waved his hand, gesturing to the reporter in the door. Security, please send her out. Remember the network or company she works for. Never will anybody at the Park Company be interviewed by this network in the future. The security guards nodded and escorted the reporter out, who held her chin up high despite her humiliation. Everyone watched in silence as she took her time walking over to the other press members in her row into the door. Olivia snorted. Sorry about that, everybody. But wasn't it a little fun for you all to get to see this kind of corporate espionage with me? We just thwarted a scheme together. The room relaxed a bit as the reporter laughed at Olivia's sharp-witted comments. Olivia continued. But what kind of real estate and hospitality industry are we even working in? It's gotten so dirty. Even though Olivia had not named Mark explicitly, every single person there could have easily guessed who she was talking about. The reporters left in the room were all smart enough. They wanted to get Olivia to say this out loud. Chairman, are you perhaps talking about Mark DeLillo at the Rose Company? Another woman reporter asked. Olivia waved her hand. I did not say that and cannot confirm or deny that statement. I am a public figure. There are a lot of things that need to be taken care of, and I am not the one who said that. She smirked at the crowd of hungry reporters. But if you are the ones who want to say it, I would not stop you. You stupid bimbo! You idiot! You witch! Mark roared as he punched the air, filled with rage at Olivia's comments during her press conference. He picked up a pillow off the couch and punted it. You ugly hag! He shouted as the pillow flew across the penthouse, bouncing to the floor. How dare she speak about my business and my reporter that way? So, Mr. DeLillo, his assistant began timidly from where he held a tablet across the room, trying to stay out of the way of his tantrum. Mark ran a hand through his hair, breathing heavily. Oh, right, what? The assistant gulped. Someone wants to interview you. They said, reject, Mark yelled. The assistant frowned, confused. Do you mean request? Rejected. God, I'm not doing an interview. It's obviously about what Olivia just said, and they want to make me look bad. Of course. The assistant nodded. He had missed the broadcast of Olivia's press conference and had no idea what he was talking about, but he knew that Mark needed to be agreed with or he would explode again. And, Mark shouted, startling the assistant, but his ire was not directed at anything in the room in particular. Prepare the speech draft for public relations. The assistant's eyes widened, still not knowing exactly what was going on. Mark whined, mocking him. Just do it and get lost. He picked up a stack of papers on his desk and threw them at the assistant, but they all fluttered apart harmlessly. Yes, sir, the assistant replied, turning to leave. Wait, Mark ordered. Hold still. His assistant complied, turning back to him confused. Suddenly, Mark picked up a bound report with a plastic cover from his desk and threw it at the assistant. The plastic sheath soared over to the assistant and whacked him right on the bridge of the nose, opening a ruby red line across it. He felt a burning pain but did not dare to cry in front of his boss. Go! Get out of here! Mark barked. The assistant hurried out of the room. As he hurried out of Mark's office, the assistant's heart was pounding, and his face burned in humiliation and anger. Mark DeLillo is a disgusting lunatic, he thought silently. He did not care about the pain across the bridge of his nose as he returned to his office and got to work trying to complete Mark's demands. He had to make things as easy to hand over to the next assistant as possible, so he could leave after his notice. He regretted that anyone had to do this job at all. Nobody should have to work for Mark DeLillo, he thought. That man is an animal and an idiot. Back in Mark's office, Mark was so angry that his eyes were bloodshot. Why is everyone around me so stupid? He thought to himself. He grabbed his hair in frustration, ruffling it. He stared at his screen and the muted video of Olivia at her press conference, which was still going. His face twisted in anger. He shook his head. It's nothing, he thought silently. As long as my PR team does its job, everything will be fine. Now is not the time to decide who will win or lose. We're not at the finish line yet. Olivia had only bit back one time, he ruminated. She hadn't turned the tables. He couldn't imagine that she had a plan up her sleeves powerful enough to fight against everything he was accomplishing at the Rose Company. So she would forever be the loser. He looked at the screen again and turned the volume up on his computer, just as the reporter was asking a question. Miss Johnson, you previously said that the park company is working hard on your upcoming business strategy, despite the fact that no information about it is publicly available. Can you tell us what it is, and let us know what's next for your company? The reporter had initially arrived with a sour look on his face, but after seeing the other reporter escorted out by Olivia's security team, he had become much more polite. After all, he continued, this company has released the forecast for their business around this time in the past. Sure, Olivia nodded, causing an outbreak of murmuring in the room, trying to verify if she really had so suddenly agreed to tell them what they'd been dying to know. Olivia signaled to a group of executives. A man stood up, fastening the button on his suit jacket. Hello to the members of the press and to everyone else watching. I am from the Research and Development Department of the Park Company. He then walked to the computer and pulled up a presentation. The image projected to the room showed the upcoming game released by Confluence under the Park Company. The reporters listened respectfully as the executive explained the upcoming release. They felt the game looked promising, but it wasn't the information they were all hoping for. A reporter raised her hand and asked, This looks great for your gaming division, but is this schedule really enough for you to come out on top in a head-to-head competition against the Rose Company? And what about your hospitality divisions? Wouldn't this be the best time to release special customer deals before summer? From his office, Mark shouted in celebration as he stood in front of his laptop. Ha! Booyah! Olivia sighed. We will not be offering any cut rate deals. As I have explained, that's not the right move for a mature company. Mark snorted, yelling at his screen. You think I'm not mature? I'll show you maturity. You're the one who's not mature." Olivia smiled out at the reporters. "We do still have other projects in the works, and I can guarantee you that they are unprecedented." Everyone in the room leaned forward, and one reporter spoke up, asking what everyone was thinking. "What kind of projects? Can you reveal any of them, Chairman?" Olivia checked her watch. "Sure." She laughed lightly as others in the room laughed with her. "That is also why I held this press conference." All the reporters' eyes lit up, excited that they had not gotten their hopes up in vain. Everyone watching the live broadcast was also eager to hear how the park company would fight against the Rose Company. From his home, Jake Nevin watched the broadcast on his phone. He sneered as he thought to himself, "No matter what she announces, the Rose Company is going to trounce her. Mark DeLillo is a real man, and whoever gets the most customers will win. He's already got her beat on buzz and reputation. Everyone wants to spend less money and get in on an exciting new thing. Olivia's definitely going to lose," he thought smugly. Beatrix sat in her bedroom in front of her computer. She smiled and shook her head. "Mark, always so impulsive," she thought. She was very curious about what Olivia had planned to fight against the Rose Company. She had honestly thought that Mark was finally doing something well for once, but she knew that smile on Olivia's face. She knew that Mark had already lost. Olivia looked over all the reporters in the room and then nodded to Violet Cartwright. Violet went to the laptop that was connected to the projector and played a video. The reporters were confused. "Huh? Isn't this Confluence's promotional video with the what's-her-face?" one reporter asked. "That pop star with all the ex-boyfriends and the cat?" "Yes," several other reporters said in unison. The video was entertaining enough that most people in the room had seen it several times, but still didn't mind watching it again. By the end, they still didn't understand what Olivia was getting at. The reporters tried to guess what her plan could be. They wondered if this meant that the park company would have gaming props in their building, or set games up to play in their hotels, or possibly finishing the game would provide discounts to stay there. Once the screen turned back, a reporter stood up to ask a question, but to everyone's surprise, another video started playing. The pop singer reappeared, speaking directly to the audience. "The game you're all so excited to play finally has a release date. I've already gotten to play it, and let me tell you, you're going to be obsessed. It's my favorite game." Everyone was impressed when they heard the release date, which was much sooner than previously speculated. Confluence's speed and quality were unmatched in the industry. "And next, there's one more little piece of info I have for you," the singer said mischievously. "You will need a code to unlock the main character of the game. To find this code, you will need to hunt it down on the park company's official website. Thank you for all your support and love, you guys." The moment she finished speaking and the video ended, everyone sat in silence, staring at the screen in awe. All anybody could think, including Beatrix, Jake, and Mark, was that this was the most brilliant strategy anyone could have ever thought of. Mark stood in front of his computer, stunned. He thought he had always been on guard against Olivia, but he felt like he had been completely exposed the whole time. Olivia made Confluence technology famous and widely discussed, while the park company pretended to be way behind. Then, when he thought Olivia had given up in the fight against him, Mark got cocky. He never saw her coming. Mark felt a ringing in his ears. He folded onto his chair, his body limp. He leaned his head back and took a deep breath. His eyes snapped wide open as he balled his hands into fists. "I have been tricked by Olivia," he thought with venom. "And this isn't even the first time. Damn it, I was tricked by her again." He slapped his cheeks and stood suddenly. "Get it together, Mark, come on," he thought to himself. "I'm not afraid. I've still got a chance, and I need to get my head in the game. Don't give up now." He looked again at Olivia's smiling face on his screen. She was still speaking, but Mark could only hear the ringing in his ears. He knew he still had a chance. He just needed to focus. This was nothing, merely a speed bump. As long as the Rose Company continued to outsell the Park Company, he could still win. He'd basically already won. Until today. At that moment, Mark's phone buzzed. The ringing sound in his ears crescendoed, causing him sudden pain. Mark rubbed his temples, shaking his head to try to get the ringing to stop. What kind of idiot has the gall to call me now? Mark thought to himself. He looked at the name on his phone. His expression immediately became solemn. Dread and frustration flashed across his face as he picked up the call. A low voice came from the other side of the call. So I assume you were watching? Mark gulped. Yes, sir, the whole thing. He set his jaw. I am sorry. The mysterious man sighed. It is fine. For now. There is still a chance. For the first thing, we need to focus on getting the reputation of the Roses back on track. Agreed, Mark replied. I already got my PR guys preparing something to put out. Mark waited an uncomfortably long time for the mysterious man to respond. Hello? Mark DeLillo, he responded. You are a rare talent, but you still do not pay enough attention to detail. Mark hung his head, beating the edge of the phone twice against his head. It is my fault, you're right. It was negligence, I miscalculated. I just didn't think Michael Johnson was helping Olivia this much this entire time. The mysterious man spoke deliberately and firmly. Next time, ask Thorns for advice on what you should do before you do it. I had my reasons for sending her over to you. You can't handle this whole matter by yourself. If Thorns were to handle this, she would do a much better job than you. Mark's mouth became a tight line. He was very displeased to feel scolded for brushing Beatrix aside when he had felt so sure that she wasn't helpful. He thought silently, that Cooper family woman is nothing. The mysterious man continued, Do not provoke Olivia for now. Let's wait for your company to have a stable foundation before making any plans. Mark was reluctant. He did not want to agree to that, but he knew he had to. Yes, sir, he replied. Mark tried to remind himself over and over again that losing this battle did not mean he had lost the war. That's how wars work, he thought to himself with a smirk. Mark was very unconvinced that Beatrix Cooper was the answer. He remembered the way Olivia had praised Beatrix to him at the gala. He was overcome with annoyance at this. The mysterious man continued, The sales volumes must still be as high as the number you promised me before. Otherwise, I will withdraw all of my funds. Mark quickly fired back. It will be. Rest assured, don't worry 1 second about me keeping these numbers high. The man's dispassionate voice replied almost as though he hadn't heard Mark. Also, do not be hostile to Beatrix Cooper. You two are partners. You are the two people I trust the most in New York City. I hope you two can be my right and left hand and not my obstacles. I understand, Mark answered, cowed. They exchanged a few more words before hanging up. In his office, the mysterious man leaned back on his plush leather sofa and sighed, rubbing his temples. There was already so much going on in London that required his immediate attention, and now it seemed there was even more in New York City. The man sighed. If Mark and Beatrix were working together, Olivia never would have gotten the upper hand. But they were still wasting time scheming against one another. They didn't even consider the consequences of their actions, it seemed. The mysterious man thought for a moment. He pulled up a number and dialed. His screen read, Thorns. Beatrix had still been watching Olivia's live stream and cursing Mark's stupidity when she saw a familiar number on her screen. She felt something wasn't right. She quickly sat up straight and answered the phone. You disappoint me, the man said as she picked up. Beatrix's heart skipped a beat in fear upon hearing those words. The mysterious man asked, What did I send you to New York City for? to assist Mark DeLillo," she replied. "I have reminded him, but—" "I do not want to hear an excuse," the mysterious man said, interrupting her. "Now you need to work with Mark DeLillo. Nothing can hinder you two from working together. You cannot afford to have a grudge against him." A trace of impatience flashed across Beatrix's eyes. "Of course," she replied. She was intensely annoyed by Mark DeLillo and wished she could just squish him like a bug. The mysterious man thought about how Melanie Cooper was going to visit New York City soon. He considered telling Beatrix as an incentive for her to work harder, but Melanie had asked him to keep it a secret, and he had a fondness for that girl. "That is all," he said, choosing to observe his promise. "You take care of yourself." Beatrix pursed her lips as she heard him hang up. Beatrix took a deep breath and tossed her phone aside. Now that she had returned to New York and was so close to Olivia, she felt an impulse to capture her and punish her. The desire itched like ants crawling under her skin, biting her flesh and drawing blood. It was very difficult to endure. Beatrix took a deep breath and walked to her bed. She slowly sat down and hugged her knees to her chest. She noticed her pedicured toenails as she reflected on how much leisure time she had had lately. Laying back on the bed, she fell into a deep, sudden sleep. She did not often dream, but today she dreamed of finally vanquishing Olivia. The two of them battled and sparred in armor that looked like the armor worn by the characters from the new Confluence game advertisement. In Beatrix's dream, she was in awe of Olivia's strength and skill, her speed. The two warriors, covered in sweat, roared as each tried to strike the other, neither drawing blood. Beatrix struck Olivia's weapon, losing it from Olivia's hands as it skidded aside. Olivia looked up at her in awe and terror, just as Beatrix raised her weapon to swing it in the killing blow. But instead, Beatrix felt herself falling downward. Her stomach lurched as she fell into the darkness. She finally landed in a heap of damp dirt, finding that Mark DeLillo was there with her in the darkness. He had accidentally pulled a trapdoor below Beatrix, he explained, dropping her down, down, down. Beatrix turned her rage on Mark, and he begged for her mercy. But as she explained to him in the dream, she had no mercy to offer him. It was his time to die. Before she had the satisfaction of killing Mark in her sleep, Beatrix jolted awake covered in sweat. She was filled with a deep disappointment, desperate to fall back asleep and experience even the illusion of that satisfaction. But her heart raced. She was wide awake. She reminded herself it was just a fantasy anyway. But she cherished the possibility that she could someday fight Olivia again, and that Mark would beg for her mercy. Beatrix thought of the ways Olivia was likely to attempt to hurt her. She thought that if anyone dared to hurt her little sister Melanie, she would kill them so ruthlessly that their corpse wouldn't even be identifiable. She would hunt them down forever to do so, and that was especially true for Olivia. Beatrix had promised Melanie that, if she wanted to take revenge on Olivia 1,000 times over, even if it took the rest of their lives, she would do whatever it took. After her nap, Beatrix stretched out and got up from her bed. She walked over to her bathroom undressed and stepped into the shower. After bathing, she felt much more refreshed and relaxed from the steam and hot water. Beatrix dried off and wrapped herself in a towel when she heard a knock at the door. "What? I'm just getting out of the shower," Beatrix called out as she wrung the water from her wet hair. "Beatrix, it's Mom," Erica Cooper called from outside. She hoped she sounded casual and not at all worried and racked with guilt. Beatrix rolled her eyes in irritation. "Hang on a minute," Beatrix answered. She pulled on her pajamas, but took her time doing it. "The door is unlocked, you can come in." Beatrix sat down on the sofa and wrapped her hair in the towel. Erica walked in with Beatrix's father, Brett Cooper, at her side. Brett looked sour. "Beatrix is such a princess. We were waiting outside for so long. I wouldn't be surprised if she didn't even shower. Just wanted to keep us waiting. I hope you had a nice shower. Erica smiled agreeably and took a seat across from Beatrix. I did. The water pressure could probably be better. Beatrix shrugged, then looked at Erica. What do they want? Beatrix wondered suspiciously. Can I help you with something? Well, Erica hesitated and looked first at her husband, then at Beatrix. We assume you know about the press conference Olivia held today, right? Yeah. Beatrix raised an eyebrow. What about it? It's very important that there are no problems with the roses right now. Mark DeLillo has a handle on everything, doesn't he? Brett asked and leaned forward seriously. He knew that the Roses and the Coopers were in the same boat now, and they would sink or swim together. If Mark dropped the ball, it would be devastating to the Cooper family business as well, and they may never recover. So that's what you're all squirrely about? Beatrix smirked. You don't have to worry. Everything is under control and it will all be fine. If Mark can just calm himself down and focus on the Rose Company, he'll be able to stay on top in New York. Beatrix thought. Well, that's good then. Erica sighed with relief. As long as Mark and the Rose family are doing fine, we'll be fine. Yes, that is good to hear. Brett agreed. He had a more ambivalent expression. Brett remembered how dominant and powerful the Cooper family had once been, but now they were relying on other people to survive, and young, unproven people at that. He was not only concerned about the Rose Company collapsing, but he was also worried that Mark DeLillo might lose interest in their business relationship and change his mind. It was a stressful idea that kept him up at night. We cannot afford for that to happen, so I must ensure that it doesn't, he thought. Brett assessed his daughter as she sat on the couch. Beatrix is still young and very beautiful. She even stands out among many of her peers. That might be one of our most important advantages in our arsenal. But what if Mark DeLillo's taste is different? Or what if he loses interest? Is Beatrix keeping him satisfied? That may be all we've got. The more Brett thought about their situation and all that was at risk, the more anxious he felt. Is that all you came to ask me about? Beatrice asked coldly. Why do you keep staring at me like that? It's creepy. Beatrix, Brett struggled to say. He did not know how to ask his daughter what he was about to ask. Brett Cooper was not a gentleman, but he still felt some shame. As her father, he couldn't stand to ask the question that was on his mind. Erica, on the other hand, did not hesitate. If Mark DeLillo is into some less than reputable types of romance, like when he was caught with that waitress at his hotel after the Handler Gala, then what is he expecting from our daughter? What have we gotten her into? Does Mark DeLillo treat you all right? Mark DeLillo? Beatrix snorted. She looked at each of her parents and understood what they were getting at. They still think I'm sleeping my way into Mark's good graces for the family. They really think I've no other tools at my disposal or anything to offer. She sighed deeply. Let me make something clear to you both. I work with Mark DeLillo. He's trying to take over New York City, and I'm helping him do that because I'm much cleverer than he is. We are just working together, and that's all. It's not what you guys think, no matter how obsessed you are with the idea. You don't have to cover for him, Brett scoffed. He was still convinced Mark must have told Beatrix to lie to them. Beatrix, Erica said as she reached out to touch Beatrix's hand. Beatrix pulled her hand away. You don't have to believe me. I guess, but I'm telling you the truth. There isn't any more to the story. If I didn't know better, I would think you did want me to start sleeping with Mark. Oh, sweetie, of course not. Why would you think a thing like that? Erica gasped. Beatrix rolled her eyes at her mother's reaction. If there's nothing else you want to discuss, you can leave now. I'm tired and need to rest. Pouring yourself out to your colleague in order to save the family business takes a lot out of you, Beatrix said sarcastically. Brett stood and pointed his finger at Beatrix. How can you speak to us so disrespectfully? Brett sputtered. He could barely contain his rage. My daughter is completely out of control. Honey, that's enough, Erica said as she quickly pulled Brett's arm down and guided her husband back to his seat. Don't go popping off. Beatrix isn't a child anymore. I'm still her father, Brett protested. Beatrix snorted coldly. She couldn't think of anyone who intimidated her less than her family, much less her blustering father. Me. Sleep with Mark DeLillo. Don't make me sick. I would rather die than get that involved with Mark DeLillo. He's one of the most obnoxious idiots I've ever met, and that's saying something since I've also had the displeasure of meeting Jake Nevin. I feel sorry for any of the women that do find themselves in either of their orbits. I would never. Beatrix calmed her indignation about her parents' assumptions. I'm meeting with Carolina Crawford later, and I want to be rested for it. You're certainly not helping, Beatrix explained casually. Carolina Crawford? You're in touch with the Crawfords? Brett and Erica asked, stunned. Beatrix took her hair out of the towel and ran her fingers through the damp strands without saying anything. She liked seeing the shocked, confused looks on their faces. Hey, we asked you a question. How do you know Carolina Crawford? Brett asked again in disbelief. I would never have teamed up with Mark and the Rose Company if I didn't have the Crawfords as backup, Beatrix explained irritably. She withheld the involvement of the mysterious man. I'm smarter and much cleverer than any of you guys give me credit for. Then you really aren't seeing Mark? In addition to working together? Brett asked in surprise. Beatrix nodded impatiently. You're not just saying that to protect Mark? Erica asked. Her eyes lit up with relief, and the guilt she held in her heart all that time over the position she thought they put Beatrix in disappeared. Thank goodness. What kind of mother would I be if I just looked the other way while our daughter seduced her way into security for us? I'm so glad it's not happening. I would only do that if I thought there was no other choice, which there is now, so I have nothing to be guilty about. And if I did consider it even for a second, can anyone really blame me? I'd like to see anyone else not panic and act out of character when they think they're about to be poor. Of course I felt terrible, but I never had anything to worry about. I'm not just saying that, I promise. Beatrix nodded firmly. It's strictly a business relationship. Even though the Crawfords aren't supposed to set foot in New York City, Carolina's reputation and influence still carry weight here. I've managed to make this connection despite all of you. If it weren't for me, no one would be working with you at all. You're business poison. Brett stifled another outburst as Erica reached out to calm him down again. And we appreciate that, Erica said diplomatically. Brett fumed next to her. So Beatrix is not sleeping with Mark to win his favor. She's counting on her connection to the Crawfords. But if things really do fall apart with Mark and the Rose Company, will that relationship with the Crawfords be enough to save us? I don't feel good about this at all, Brett worried in his head. The Crawfords haven't had any power in New York City for a long time. They're not even allowed to be here. How will they be able to help us if the Rose Company falls through? What a mess this whole situation is. He felt deeply conflicted about the possible scenarios, neither of which looked good. If the Roses fail, then we're completely sunk. But if the Roses succeed and become the most powerful, they might decide they don't need us at all and throw us to the wayside. Then we'll be back to ruin. He only felt worse after Beatrix's assurances. Dad, why do you look so uncomfortable? Beatrix asked coldly. If you're going to keep scowling like that, do it somewhere else. What could he possibly be mad about now? Beatrix wondered irritably. Is he really that disappointed that I haven't offered myself up to Mark DeLillo? What is wrong with him? If I could keep him from benefiting from any of my plans, I would. But Dad wants his daughter to throw herself at a man in exchange for money. Well, why didn't you explain all of this sooner? Brett scolded Beatrix. She talks to us like we're idiots, but she is the one withholding all of the relevant information. Beatrix fired back. Explain what? All I ever said was that the Roses and the Coopers could work together. I never said anything about sleeping with Mark. You're the ones who got obsessed with that idea and haven't let it go ever since. You guys have some pretty sick imaginations. It's completely insulting. Do you have any idea how messed up that is for a parent to ask of their child? She exclaimed indignantly. Beatrix struggled to decide whether she hated Mark DeLillo or her own family more. When she was working, she could not wait to get away from Mark. But home was a different kind of hell. How am I constantly surrounded by so many selfish idiots? She lamented. For a brief moment, Mark felt guilty when he saw the angry look on his daughter's face. Explain to me again this business with the Crawfords. The plans keep changing, he said defensively. They haven't changed. You just haven't believed me and you assume everything. Beatrix retorted. Will you believe me now, even if I do explain more? Yes, now that we know you're working with Carolina Crawford. Brett scoffed. I don't know why you withheld that piece of information until now. If I told you that Carolina Crawford was involved any sooner, do you really think Uncle Ryan would have given up his position as heir to the Cooper family business? Beatrix asked. Do you think you'd have any chance? Think, for once. How dare she speak to me this way? Brett thought. But he really could not argue with her point. It was then that he realized Beatrix knew much more than he had previously thought. He pursed his lips and said, How do you know about any of this? That my brother intends to give up his position? It wasn't hard to figure out. Beatrix snorted. He leaves early and returns very late every single day. He's never at the office, and Nisha has all this new jewelry, and it is definitely not from the money from the family business. Beatrix sneered, spelling it all out for them. She recalled how clueless Nisha had been about where her expensive jewelry was really coming from and why. It was very amusing to toy with her, Beatrix thought proudly. That is true. Erica nodded as she thought it through. Nisha has been acting very strange these last few days. Last night she fought with Ryan. Anyone with eyes can see that Uncle Ryan is having an affair and not bothering with the family business anymore. Beatrix snorted. His position in the family is Dad's for the taking. Congratulations, and you're welcome. What Beatrix is saying makes a lot of sense, Erica and Brett thought, but she clearly doesn't know the full story. Brett and Erica looked at each other, silently deciding not to fill her in on Brett's new endeavors in illegal activity. Beatrix, Erica said and reached out to take Beatrix's hand again. Beatrix stood to get more distance between her and her parents. As soon as she turned her back, she let the disgust she felt for them show all over her face. My own mother has the gall to reach out and take my hand, like she isn't the worst mother on earth for allowing me to go through with my father's plan. No, Mother, you don't get to pretend you're concerned about me now. Beatrix turned back around, plastering on the same poker face she had kept for most of this conversation. I need to rest. Go now, bye-bye. All right, we won't disturb you anymore, Erica said as she stood up, pulling Brett behind her. After Erica and Brett left the room, Beatrix took a deep, exhausted breath. My parents really are the worst. Suddenly, Beatrix's phone rang with an incoming video call. She looked at her phone and saw it was from Melanie Cooper. Beatrix smiled, her first genuine happy smile in ages. Melanie was the only one she cared about anymore. She excitedly accepted the call. Outside the room, Erica and Brett processed their discussion with Beatrix. Erica felt overwhelming relief, but Brett looked more grave than ever. If Beatrix really isn't in an intimate relationship with Mark DeLillo, how can she be sure he will wholeheartedly help the Cooper family? Our family situation is still hanging by a thread. Brett worried to himself. I have to get in touch with Mark. He and Beatrix simply being coworkers is not enough to ensure our survival. No, we need Beatrix to sacrifice herself for the good of the family. The more Brett considered it, the more certain he was of what needed to be done. If Mark marries Beatrix and becomes my son-in-law, the future of the Cooper family will be secure. Maybe I could even get a piece of the Rose Company out of it. Brett's eyes gleamed with greed as he smirked. Maybe good times are coming sooner than I thought. What are you smiling about? Erica asked. Nothing. Brett shook his head. What do you think of Beatrix? Beatrix is wonderful. Erica nodded. She's smart and beautiful. She's resourceful and independent. And now she is aligning herself with Carolina Crawford? That is especially good thinking. I think so too. Brett nodded thoughtfully. There's no reason Mark DeLillo wouldn't like her, right? Mark should easily fall in love with Beatrix. Erica paused and looked at Brett in surprise. What do you mean? Exactly what I just said, Brett answered, slightly annoyed. But isn't Mark DeLillo something of a predator? Erica explained in disbelief of what her husband seemed to be suggesting. We don't know that for sure, but maybe he just hasn't met someone like our daughter. Someone who can put him in his place and help him to be a better man, Brett reasoned. Even after knowing about his scandal with that waitress, you want to just throw our daughter at someone like that? Erica gasped. We don't really know what happened with that waitress, do we? There are always two sides to a story. And what are you clutching your pearls about anyway? Brett scolded. This is all for the Cooper family. You don't want to lose everything, do you? For the Cooper family? Erica repeated in disbelief. You're always thinking about the reputation of this family more than Beatrix. Every time it's the same. You weren't exactly disagreeing with me last time, Brett sneered. Why are you pretending to be the protective, selfless mother now? You want us all to be saved from ruin just as much as I do, and you're willing to do anything for it. I was just confused last time, Erica argued defensively. I didn't understand what you were really suggesting. If you had to choose again, you'd do the exact same thing and you know it, Brett accused. You're no different than me. Erica did not say anything and turned away. Her face was pale with shame. Brett snorted coldly at his knife. He put his hands in his pockets and hummed a tune to himself as he walked away. Where are you going? Erica asked warily. Back to the office. Brett answered curtly and walked out. Erica stood alone, frozen in place as her thoughts crashed around in her head. I was wrong before. I never should have gone along with it. I didn't really mean it. I was scared and wasn't thinking clearly. I would never make that same choice again. What kind of mother have I been? The way Beatrix rejected her touch multiple times that day broke Erica's heart. But she knew deep down that she deserved it. Erica wrapped her arms around herself, then crumpled to the floor in a heap and burst into tears. It's just so hard to be a person. It's even harder to be a wife and a mother. Back at the park company after the press conference, Olivia asked Violet to escort all of the reporters out of the building and gather the team of all the department heads and supervisors together. The press conference was only the first step in her bigger plan, and it was time to get everyone on the same page. All of the department heads sat together, buzzing from the news that came out of Olivia's press conference. The whole room fell quiet as Olivia stood before them. I assume that everyone heard what I discussed at the press conference? Olivia asked. Everyone nodded and murmured yes. They now knew that Olivia had prepared a plan all along in secret. I apologize that I didn't let everyone in on what was going on sooner, Olivia said. It was part of the strategy that had to be done carefully. The marketing plan was to keep the mobile game release date a secret and make it invite only, to draw traffic to the park company website every day for the code, which all needed to stay under wraps until now. I hope you can all understand. Of course. Everyone nodded and smiled. Olivia looked to Violet, who nodded and handed out the documents that Olivia prepared earlier. Here is the entire plan now, Olivia explained. Look it over, We will immediately move forward if there are no problems or objections." They all flipped through the thick packets that outlined Olivia's plan and read them carefully, page by page. "Is there anything else I can get you, Olivia?" Violet offered. Olivia thought for a moment, then answered, "Could I get a cup of coffee, please, with milk?" "Of course. I'll be right back." Violet nodded and turned to go. "I would love one as well," Jeff chimed in. He felt a little embarrassed about how his request sounded, but he wasn't about to take it back now. He had to stand his ground. Violet glared at him but did not say anything. When she returned with Olivia's coffee, she wordlessly set down a black coffee in front of Jeff as well. "Thanks," Jeff said and took a sip. It tasted terrible in his mouth. He frowned down at his cup and looked at Violet. He saw she had a faint, devilish smile and he sighed helplessly. "She's always teaching me a lesson," he thought. Normally, he would be furious with her, but recently, he had developed a fondness for their little game of cat and mouse. "What is going on with me?" Jeff shook his head at himself. Olivia did not take notice of the interaction between Jeff and Violet. She focused on drinking her coffee and took advantage of the rare opportunity to relax a bit while everyone read through the documents. After 20 minutes or so, Olivia checked in with everyone. "How's it looking?" All of the department heads in the room nodded their heads approvingly. There was no doubt or worries in anyone's mind any longer. They felt confident in the future of the park company and had even more faith in Olivia. "Great. If there are no objections, then let's move forward," Olivia said. "All of those in favor, raise your hand." Every single person enthusiastically raised their hand in a show of unanimous approval. Olivia smiled as her eyes roved over all of the hands. Not a single person was against her plan, and they all seemed to be excited about it. "It's official," Olivia smiled. She immediately launched into delegating specific tasks to each department. Every single department head took careful note of her instructions. "We've definitely got our work cut out for us. We'll probably be very busy for the next period, and everyone will have to dig deep to give it everything they've got," Olivia said. "But I believe in us. There is no one else I trust to get this done." "We don't mind being tired. We're just glad to be busy," the head of public relations said. Everyone laughed good-naturedly and wholeheartedly agreed. "That's everything, then." Olivia tapped her nails on the table. "That concludes the meeting. Let's get to work." Everyone cheered and clapped as they rose from their seats. An exciting energy permeated the room. They now felt confident that they had a clear, solid plan and that everyone would give it their all. Olivia watched the last person leave and swallowed the rest of her coffee. "Violet, could I get another one of these?" "Drinking too much coffee won't do you any good," Violet warned gently. "Don't push yourself too hard, Olivia." Violet knew that everyone else thought of Olivia as a young professional genius with endless brilliant strategies. Today, she successfully had the press conference on time and everything worked like a charm. The meeting that just concluded had everyone's spirits running high, and confidence in the park company's prospects were stronger than ever. Violet could already predict the glowing reactions the media would have to everything Olivia accomplished that day alone. However, Violet knew the private side of Olivia as well. She knew the mountain of effort Olivia had poured into preparing for that day to ensure its success. She worked around the clock to cover the park company plans during the day and Confluence's game business by night. Violet didn't know what was ahead, but if anyone could do it, it was Olivia. It was all evident in the press conference that day. Olivia Johnson made it look easy to everyone else, but Violet knew Olivia carried the burden of the entire park company on her shoulders. She could not afford to lose. Every decision Olivia made was with the future of every employee in mind. It was a tremendous responsibility, and Olivia handled it all with such grace and maturity. "You're right," Olivia said as she rubbed her temples and sighed. "I have been sleeping less and less lately. Sometimes I feel like I just pass out," she joked. "You deserve a good rest," Violet nodded comfortingly. You're still human with a human body. If you keep going like this, you'll run out of steam sooner or later, and that won't be good for anyone either. You have to take care of yourself. I know. I just need to get through this busy period. Olivia sighed deeply. Everything is hard while you're in the middle of it, but after this, I'll be able to rest and everything will be fine. It will all have been worth it. Violet nodded dutifully. She didn't want to push anymore. Olivia felt a surge of warmth for Violet. She had been assigned as her secret bodyguard and protector, but had become so much more than that since they started working together. Violet kept an eye on her the same way her mother did. Even though she was in the body of a young person, Olivia was not really just a kid. She was grateful to have so many fierce women looking out for her. They had no idea they do not need to worry about me as much as they do, but it's very sweet, Olivia thought to herself. The conference room door opened and Morgana poked her head in, a lollipop poking out of her mouth as she spoke. Olivia, are you done with your meeting now? Ready to go home? She asked. Not quite yet, Olivia said as she stood up. I need to stop by Confluence first and see my dad. Olivia knew the news from her press conference would light a fire over there and that her dad would be feeling the heat. She needed to help him out. At the press conference, the announcement about the game's release date caused a hot debate in the entire gaming world. Confluence's biggest shareholders immediately rushed to Michael's office to try and understand what they had just heard. Michael had watched the live broadcast of Olivia's press conference along with everyone else. When other employees began swarming his office wanting answers, Michael casually leaned against his chair and simply asked, "What can I do for you?" He knew it was important to keep things calm. "Michael, how can you be so flippant about such an important matter?" One of the employees asked angrily. "We should have had a meeting about this so we could all approve it together." Another executive complained. "Why do you want to merge with the park company?" A board member joined in, gritting his teeth. "This game was planned. It went into production, and it has been completed." Michael responded to the disgruntled crowd. "It was a careful decision that I believe benefited everyone the most this way." "Now you know. So what is the problem, really?" Michael asked. The crowd fell silent. Then someone said, "This game is funded by the company. We are the shareholders. We deserve to be kept informed." "This game belongs to the gaming team's department," Michael reasoned. "From day one, I have always said I would follow Olivia's lead. You all have no one to be angry with but yourselves." In the Confluence boardroom, a wave of discontent was washing over the higher-ups. The room buzzed with sharp, incisive dialogue from individual employees, all expressing their frustration about being left in the dark regarding Olivia's game release plan. Can you believe it? Olivia goes on national television, drops this bombshell about the game, and we're the last to know. One executive exclaimed. "It's as if we're just foot soldiers, not a vital part of the strategy team. We're out here working day and night, and the highest up at the company treats us like afterthoughts." Another added bitterly. Michael Johnson, observing the mounting frustration, sighed heavily. He tried to interject, to offer some explanation for Olivia's actions, but his words were drowned out by the cacophony of discontent. "Look, Olivia had her reasons for—" Michael attempted, but the disgruntled voices overpowered his own. Frustration etched on his face. Michael moved to the front of the room, attempting to command the group's attention. "Everyone, please!" He raised his voice, but to no avail. His patience fraying, Michael finally yelled, "Enough!" The room fell silent, all eyes turning to him. The employees, taken aback by his outburst, looked at him with a mix of surprise and apprehension. Michael, standing his ground, began. "Olivia chose a surprise release date because she knew we needed something extraordinary to disrupt the market, to catch the Rose Company off guard. This was about creating a media ripple effect. But we've been working tirelessly on this project. To be blindsided like this, it's insulting." an employee retorted. Another chimed in. We deserve to be in the loop. How are we supposed to strategize effectively if we're kept in the dark? Michael tried to maintain his composure, understanding their concerns, yet trying to steer them towards seeing the bigger picture. I get it. You're frustrated. But sometimes in this business, shock and awe are the cards you must play. Olivia played hers. Now we need to rally and capitalize on this momentum. We're not going to capitalize on momentum we didn't even know was coming, one shareholder stated firmly. Exactly. If Olivia wanted us to do extra work, she would have informed us, not leave us reeling from shock. Another added. We're now in the worst possible position, scrambling to continue this unexpected momentum while keeping up with our existing projects. A third shareholder pointed out. Michael looked around the room, trying to find a way to reach them. He attempted to continue explaining the plan. I understand your concerns, but we need to... His words were quickly dismissed. Michael, you and Olivia are clearly terrible at communicating. That's your main job. How can both you and Olivia be so bad at the most important part of your job, communicating with your own team? Another interjected. Michael's frustration began to show. Listen, the strategy... You call that a strategy that doesn't include your entire team? A shareholder cut in. Michael, finally losing his patience, snapped. Enough. I'm tired of explaining myself. I am the CEO, and you need to watch how you speak to me. The outburst only served to fuel the shareholder's anger. All this shows is you're using Confluence as a tool to aid Olivia, not caring about this company, one accused. The accusations and grievances continued to fly, each one a testament to the growing rift between the leadership and the rest of the Confluence team. Michael's attempt to assert his authority seemed to backfire, leaving the room even more divided than before. Michael looked around the room at the sea of discontented faces and took a deep breath. Please, he started softly. Just give me a few minutes to explain. Why should we listen, Michael? After all that's happened? A shareholder questioned skeptically. I'm asking you to just hear me out. Michael pleaded gently. The shareholders, still visibly upset, exchanged glances, but their expressions softened slightly, indicating a willingness to listen. Michael cleared his throat and began his speech, his voice steady but filled with empathy. I understand why you're upset. The way we handled the announcement wasn't ideal. You all deserve to be informed about our strategy. It was a misstep, and I take full responsibility for it. He looked around the room, making eye contact with several shareholders. I know your frustration isn't just about working alongside the park company. It's about change. And let's face it, change is difficult and unsettling. It disrupts our routine and our sense of security. But not all change is bad. Michael paused, choosing his words carefully. The changes we're experiencing, they're leading us somewhere positive. I can't lay out all the details right now, but I need you to trust me. What's happening? It's bigger than just Confluence or the park company. It's about a vision for the future, a future that benefits all of us. He continued with conviction. This change, it's an opportunity for growth, for innovation. It's a chance to be a part of something groundbreaking, something that will redefine our industry. I'm asking you to believe in that vision, to believe in the potential of what we can achieve together. The shareholders, visibly moved by Michael's speech, still wore expressions of uncertainty. They looked around at each other, each searching for a sign of consensus, but remained not fully convinced. Michael scanned the room, trying to gauge the impact of his words. His eyes implored them for trust, for belief in his vision. A shareholder broke the silence. How can we be sure we can trust you, Michael? How do we know this isn't just another corporate gamble? Michael turned to one of the shareholders who was deeply involved in the finances of the company. What's our projection for this quarter, just Confluence alone? The shareholder adjusted his glasses. We're looking to somewhere between 100 to 200 million. Seizing the moment, Michael continued, by aligning with the park company, our projection jumps to 300 million. Yes, 300 million in 1 quarter. The room erupted in murmurs of disbelief. 300 million, that's unheard of in our industry. Michael stood firmer, his voice resonating with conviction. If we don't hit those numbers, I'll resign. I'm that confident in this strategy. The boldness of his statement left the room stunned into silence. Michael pressed on, his voice a mixture of assurance and empathy. I know there's apprehension about the changes, about how they'll impact the company, your jobs. But believe me, these changes are for the better. We're not just growing in numbers, we're evolving as a company. This collaboration with the park company is a step forward, a leap into the future where Confluence isn't just a player, but a leader in the industry. Our profits doubling means more than just bigger numbers. It means opportunities for everyone here, advancements, expansions, and a stronger, more secure future. We're not just doing this for the company's bottom line. We're doing it for every single person who contributes to our success. As the meeting disbanded, the shareholders left the boardroom, their spirits noticeably lifted. They chatted animatedly among themselves, their earlier skepticism replaced with a newfound confidence. I can't believe how wrong we were about Olivia and Michael, one shareholder remarked to another. They really have a solid vision for the company. Yeah, making $300 million in a quarter, that's unheard of. This merger might just be the best thing that's happened to us. Another responded, their excitement palpable. I was so skeptical at first, but Michael's speech changed my perspective. There's real potential here. A third shareholder added. As the shareholders filed out, discussing the promising future, Michael watched them, a hint of satisfaction in his eyes. His right-hand man, Ansel Parr, stepped up beside him. You really have a plan to hit that 300 million mark? He asked half-jokingly. Michael chuckled. Not exactly. I needed to intimidate the shareholders, to show them we mean business. They shared a laugh, the tension from the meeting dissipating. Ansel, still amused, said, Well, you set the bar pretty high. If we don't deliver, those shareholders might just turn on you. Michael nodded, acknowledging the risk. That's why I said I'd resign if we don't reach it. It's a bold move, but it shows I'm serious. I'm prepared to give it my all, Michael continued. I have to make sure that what I said in there becomes a reality. It's not just about numbers. It's about proving our worth and our capability. We've got a lot riding on this. The Confluence office was alive with whispers and murmurs, the air thick with rumors about Michael Johnson's bold prediction. Everywhere, employees were buzzing about the staggering figure of 300 million, and the astonishing claim that Michael would resign if the target wasn't met. Did you hear? Michael's betting his job on hitting 300 million this quarter. One employee whispered to another by the water cooler. Yeah, it's all over the place. If he doesn't make it, he says he'll step down. Can you believe that? Another employee responded, eyes wide with disbelief. In the cafeteria, a group huddled around a table. There's no way he'd risk his position unless he's really sure about this. He must have something up his sleeve, one speculated. Or maybe it's a desperate move. I mean, aligning with the park company is big, but 300 million big? Another pondered out loud. Amidst the gossip, two employees stood in a corner observing the frenzy. Why would Michael do this? What's his secret plan? One of them wondered. The other shrugged. It's gotta be something major. No one risks their career on a whim. Maybe there's more to this merger than we know. Michael has lost his mind. The cafeteria continued to buzz with gossip surrounding Michael Johnson's seemingly insane pledge to make $300 million within a single quarter. The whispers that floated through the busy office building were filled with accusations and assumptions. I heard he's doing it just to impress his ex, one employee whispered in a catty tone. But what if he fails? Will he really give up his position? Who would want a man without a job? another employee whispered back. He'll probably just let his daughter take over the entire company. A low-level assistant rolled his eyes as he discussed the matter amongst a group of fellow assistants. Imagine having to rely on your own child to bail you out of a sticky situation. Even as employees began to finish their lunches, the gossip continued. Two women who had been particularly suspicious of Michael's intentions extended their speculations out into the hallway as they made their way back to their respective offices. Can you imagine being the daughter of Michael Johnson? One of the women mused. It must be such a luxury to know that no matter what happens, you have a father who's willing to risk it all. Not to mention, such a handsome father, the other woman added. I wouldn't mind calling him Daddy if he let me. The first woman giggled, playfully slapping her friend on the wrist. Oh my gosh, you're sick. But really, being the daughter of Michael Johnson would never be as good as being the wife of Michael Johnson. The second woman let her imagination run wild. To have such a powerful, attractive, intelligent man as your spouse must be heaven. The first woman nodded in agreement. I really don't know what his ex was thinking. She should have locked him down the second she found out she was pregnant. She could have had it all. The women didn't notice that another employee just behind them perked up at the mention of Michael Johnson's ex. The employee in question quickened her pace slightly, trying to listen in to the conversation without drawing attention to herself. Then again, the second woman continued their conversation, oblivious to their eavesdropper. If I found out that my husband had made a claim that he would earn $300 million in one quarter, I might think he had lost his mind. True, the first woman sighed. It's too bad Mr. Johnson agreed to step down from the company if he doesn't hit his goal. There's definitely no woman who wants an unemployed husband who lost his job thanks to his own pig-headedness. Hearing this, the employee behind them, who had been carefully eavesdropping, let out a small gasp. The two women turned then and came face to face with the other employee. Not wanting to be caught, the eavesdropper quickly pretended to be reading the news on her phone. I can't believe the Knicks made it into the finals, she said out loud, acting as though she were too engrossed in the world of sports to have even paid attention to a word the woman had said. Satisfied that they were safe from prying ears, the two women continued on their way, eventually changing topics to a sale that was happening this weekend at their favorite department store. The employee who had been eavesdropping quickly ran back to her own department, the finance department. She knew that there was no way the news about Michael Johnson making such a grand statement had reached her department yet. And she also knew that if anyone deserved to know about this matter, that person was her boss, Victoria Park. The employee reached the sea of offices and cubicles that made up the finance department, out of breath from her efforts to get back quickly. Seeing her rush into the department so quickly, a bunch of her fellow employees exited their cubicles to check on her. Whoa, where's the fire? One of the finance employees asked. Is everything okay? Where's Victoria? The woman gasped in between deep inhales. She needs to know what's happening. I don't want her to be blindsided. Victoria is in a meeting with Nate Evans right now. I wouldn't interrupt unless it's something really, really important. Another employee added. The woman, finally catching her breath, looked towards Nate Evans' door, conflicted. Her heart rate was finally returning to normal, but now she worried if it was worth interrupting them for. Finally, she shook her head. No, it's not that important. I can tell her when she's done. The group of employees standing around her exchanged a glance, then turned back to the woman. Well, in the meantime, can you at least tell us what's going on? One of the employees begged. The woman looked around quickly, making sure there was no one else eavesdropping. All right, but you didn't hear it from me. The woman leaned into the group conspiratorially. She recounted everything she had heard the women in the hallway talk about, from Michael Johnson's vow to make more money this quarter than the company had made in the last calendar year, to his promise to step down as CEO if he were unsuccessful, to even the speculation that he was doing it all just to impress Victoria. No. One of the other employees gasped when the woman finished telling them what she had heard. But do you think it's all true? The woman nodded definitively, feeling proud to be the one to share such a juicy piece of information. Just then, the sound of someone clearing their throat was heard just behind the huddle of employees. The group of employees startled, immediately standing stick straight as they turned to meet a cold pair of eyes. Maybe if the accounting department worked a bit more and gossiped less, this company would actually be able to turn a decent profit. Lisa hissed at the group of employees. "We're sorry, Lisa." The woman looked down at her feet, embarrassed as she spoke. "We were just discussing—" "The new Quicken upgrade?" One of the employees jumped in, trying to save their fellow coworker from chastisement. Lisa raised an eyebrow skeptically, but chose to move on from the matter. She had bigger fish to fry. "Where is Nate Evans? I need to discuss something with him." "He's currently in a meeting with Miss Park," one of the others offered, trying to be as helpful as possible. "Of course he is," Lisa sneered, glaring at Nate's closed office door. "As soon as he's done, tell him to come to my office ASAP." The employees, still huddled in front of Lisa, exchanged a knowing look. Seeing this, Lisa ruffled slightly in embarrassment. "We'll get back to work then. You're not paid to stand around like a group of chickens at feeding time." Lisa barked at the employees and then quickly scattered back to their cubicles. Inside Nate's office, he and Victoria were just wrapping up their meeting to discuss the game plan for the finance team in the upcoming quarter. It had been a successful meeting, and both Nate and Victoria were feeling optimistic about the upcoming weeks at Confluence. "I'm glad we were able to have this meeting." Victoria smiled at Nate as she gathered her things. "I'll make sure to email you over that article we discussed." "Very good, thank you," Nate nodded. He had done his best to keep things professional with Victoria these last few months, but sitting across from her, alone in his office for the last half hour, he realized his feelings for her were still very much present. He watched as Victoria stood from her chair, picking up the documents she had brought with her delicate hands. Nate couldn't believe any person could be as graceful as Victoria. She even makes the most mundane tasks look like an elegantly choreographed dance. Nate thought to himself, "Well, if there isn't anything else, I should go see if I can catch the end of my lunch break," Victoria said as she began to make her way to the door. "Wait!" The word fell out of Nate's mouth before he had a chance to stop himself. Victoria turned back to him, a look of confusion and curiosity on her face. "Was there something else to go over?" She glanced at one of the documents in her hand. "I thought we hit every point we needed to consider." Nate racked his brain. He didn't have anything else he needed to say to Victoria, although there was so much in his head he wanted to say. I just... Nate stuttered as he tried to come up with something. "I wanted to see if you had any interest in going out to dinner next week." Nate knew he was taking a big gamble with his request. As soon as he saw Victoria shift uncomfortably, he knew his gamble had not paid off. "I was thinking we should take the staff out to reward them for a job well done," Nate added quickly, trying to make his invitation sound casual. "You know, to build up employee morale and whatnot." Victoria relaxed and then, "Oh, what a nice idea." She smiled warmly at Nate, causing him to immediately break out in a blush. "So you'll come to dinner?" Nate felt his heart race as he waited for Victoria's answer. "Of course I will." Victoria nodded, and Nate felt his heart lighten. "As long as everyone else in the department is willing to go to dinner, I will definitely be there," Victoria added just before exiting Nate's office. As he watched Victoria leave, Nate felt as if his heart had been slammed into the closing door. Olivia's brilliant marketing strategy for the next quarter had finally been announced to the world, sending shockwaves through the public. The official websites of the Park Company and Confluence Technology announced at the same time that their highly anticipated new game would be released soon. No one could believe they'd need to look for an invite code on the Park Company's website and unlock all their new characters, special items, and bonus missions with codes they could get from the Park Company. Many were in awe of this strategy, thinking it was genius. People around the world expressed their opinions, and of course, some were not so thrilled that they would have to take the extra steps to play certain parts of the game. Others pointed out that, despite their grumbling, those detractors would almost certainly still be playing the game. The game release was the upcoming event of the year. Nobody wanted to miss out. However, since there were so many comments and questions, Park Company and Confluence employees were inundated with interviews. Olivia asked Jeff Dreyer to handle being the face of the Park Company for the time being, so that she could focus on her work in the day-to-day. Michael Johnson handled everything for Confluence, but he quickly realized that it would be easier for him to hold a press conference rather than deal with the constant barrage of interview requests from reporters. Olivia and Michael were both so proud of the father-daughter team that they had established in the business world. The heat and buzz generated by their current action were unprecedented. Olivia would remember brief flashes of their antagonistic relationship she'd had with her unhappy father in her past life, and was overwhelmed with happiness that this was now the life she was able to create for the two of them instead. Michael took the podium at Confluence's biggest conference room before the assembled press. He thought that this was also the perfect time to announce more info regarding the launch of their mobile game. The first reporter stood up eagerly. She began, "Mr. Johnson, we've seen that Confluence and the Park Company have become strange bedfellows to sell the public on this new game, in what some see as a cynical play." Whoa. Michael interrupted with a smile. "I don't mean to be rude, but the phrasing you chose is very interesting." She held her hands open, uncertain how to continue. "Can you elaborate?" He sighed, keeping his friendly, easygoing demeanor up. "I know it's not just you. Many people are surprised by this partnership, even confused. But I hope everyone can understand that Confluence Technology and the Park Company have extremely compatible expertise." He assessed the skeptical faces in the room and continued, "The games launched by Confluence over the past 2 years have been extremely well received. And this upcoming title, especially after our successful promotional video, is already very highly anticipated by our customers." The room murmured in assent. They were all fans of the video and the catchy song that accompanied it. The reporter nodded. "Yes, that's right." Michael felt more assured. The Park Company is also leading New York in real estate and hospitality. Its name is even an iconic part of the skyline. The reporter nodded again. "Of course," she replied. "Confluence is a younger company than Park. We're not leading our industry yet. So we felt it made sense to partner with a legacy company that can give us strength. We are lending them some youthful energy, but we need what they have to offer too. It could be considered that Confluence is taking advantage of them, if you look at it that way." Michael chuckled, and everyone in the room laughed along. "Therefore," Michael concluded with an air of finality, "I prefer to call our partnership a strategic cooperation. A win-win for both of us. So I don't know how that could be called cynical, but we are both getting real, tangible benefits for our business and for our customers." The reporters in the room all wrote, pens scratching paper and keyboards tapping away. Everyone seemed satisfied by the answer. Another reporter raised their hand. "Hi, Mr. Johnson. I'm a reporter from NYC Metropolis Monthly. I wanted to ask if the game release collaboration between Confluence and the Park Company is to fight against the Rose Company's latest marketing success." Michael made a face like he was surprised to hear this and confused by the question. "Oh, I don't think so at all. This game was conceived, which was way before the Rose Company existed. We had already decided to work together. As you may know, the production time for games is very long, so it wouldn't be possible for us to have released this game together as a reaction to the creation of the Rose Company or their upcoming plans." The reporters all nodded and took notes again, satisfied. This was an airtight explanation. Michael looked thoughtful. "Another thing I would add is that the Park Company doesn't need to be wary of other hospitality companies or react to a special event or promotion or what have you. As I said in my last answer, the Park Company is a legacy institution. Its name alone is a vital part of the New York City skyline. They just don't need to worry about someone else's promo deal." Another reporter raised her hand. "Hello, Mr. Johnson. I'm an intern with the New York City Daily. I want to ask you a question based on my own opinion. Is that okay?" "I guess we'll see," Michael replied good-naturedly to scattered laughter. "I have been excited about Confluence's upcoming game. I've been looking forward to playing since it was announced. However, I am disappointed to hear that it's only after spending money at the park company that I have the ability to unlock every piece of the game. I'm personally pretty disappointed by this tactic. It feels as though it's forcing me to spend with a different company, and I think that a lot of other people feel this way too. What is your response?" Michael smiled kindly. "That is an interesting question. If I may ask, have you graduated college yet?" The reporter nodded, confused. "I did. I just graduated." She wasn't sure what this had to do with the question she asked. Michael paused, organizing his thoughts. "It's like this. The reason I run a game company is to encourage the players to spend so that the company can keep running. I think everyone who makes games does so with the goal of supporting themselves and their employees financially so that they may continue to make more games." The reporter was about to argue when Michael continued. "Some people say you should have a more altruistic goal and make games to benefit people, and that's it. Well, I do want to benefit people, namely my employees. I want to make sure they still have jobs and can continue working without starving to death. If I take their hard work to create our game without having customers spend so that I can pay them, that's not a gaming company. It's more like a multi-level marketing scheme." Most of the room laughed at this, but not the intern who asked the question. Michael looked at them seriously. "I will work hard. My brilliant employees who I am in awe of every day will also work hard and already spend so much of their time and energy on the games we make. That is why we want to earn revenue. I want to give my employees good salaries, raises, and holiday bonuses." All of the reporters nodded and chuckled. Those who had seen this press conference on top of Olivia's were struck by the thought that this father and daughter were so alike. They were both honest, hardworking, and altruistic. Whether or not one was personally a fan, it could not be denied that Michael and Olivia were good at public speaking. After all, most CEOs with any sense would claim that they didn't love money and power. They did what they did for the welfare of society. Michael looked humbly out over the press, having convinced most of them already. "That is why my goal is very clear," he continued. "I want to let the employees of Confluence Technology get everything they deserve and pay them well enough to keep working for me when they excel. I want to meet their hopes and surpass them as much as possible. I have always said that this is my intention as a leader, and it is what I think of as my priority every day." The intern still looked skeptical and spoke up again. "Then what do you think of the way that the Rose Company minimizes their own profits to maximize the benefits for the public? Their ideology seems to be more generous than what you just proposed, Mr. Johnson." Michael nodded and laughed. "You have a really bright future. I commend you on your analysis of the industry right now. You're going to make one heck of a reporter." The room laughed and the intern suppressed a smile. Michael continued, "However, I know you're setting up a trap for me." The intern's face fell.